Hey, so we're back. We're at chapter 7, and that's the chapter that I was saying was the long chapter. Chapter 7 deals with a capital offense. And what a capital offense is a criminal charge that is punishable by the death penalty. And so we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at the actual charges of Hophni and Phineas and why theirs was a capital offense. Again, this is a whole legal case. Because chapter 7 is long, chapter 7 would not be done in one take. It literally has to be broken down, especially because of what we'll be considering in chapter 7. That's the chapter that I was editing that took me so long that I was like literally in tears over this chapter. Like, I'm not going to ever finish. So it's going to be broken down. It's going to be presented in about 7 or 8 portions, 7 or 8 pieces. So I'm going to do the first one right now. Chapter 7, a capital offense. Having already established that Eli knew about everything his sons were doing and talked to them about it, those boys still refused to pay attention to the warnings given. Eli should have at that point removed them from serving as priests, but he did not. We will address Eli's behavior a little later, but now our focus is on the disrespectful behavior of the sons of Eli, especially as it pertains to the positions of authority that they held. To whom much is given, much is expected. That's Luke chapter 12, verse 48. At 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 17, we are told that they were guilty of treating the Lord's offerings with contempt. I'll say that again. At 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 17, we are told that they were guilty of treating the Lord's offerings with contempt. What does that mean? Is it possible that this same behavior is happening within the priesthood today? This caused me to wonder about the Lord's offering, what it was and how it was that they treated it with contempt. I believe that this is something that we need to consider today because of God's response to Hophni and Phineas. God's word clearly reveals that their behavior was wrong in the eyes of the Lord. So we definitely do not need to repeat their behaviors knowing what their outcome was, death. Considering all that is occurring in our day, the political and national unrest, the coronavirus plague, and more, I find myself seriously concerned that we today are guilty of imitating the same destructive behaviors that were demonstrated in times past. Everything that I have been researching, in addition to working on this book, has shown my suspicions to be correct. God said that his people died for a lack of knowledge and that his discipline will start at his house first. That's Hosea chapter 4, verse 6 and Ezekiel chapter 9, verses 1 through 11. So I realize that this is something that we need to pay close attention to. There is a great possibility that we too have become guilty of treating the Lord's offerings with contempt. This has therefore inspired my search to understand what these offerings were. And that took me to the book of Leviticus. So we're going to pause here. The next part will be the Lord's offerings. We're going to look at all of this stuff because seriously, everything that has been happening and how y'all look, the world that we're living in now is not what it was 2019 and before. Everything from 2020 on, all of this is different. There's definitely been a shift. So yeah, at the time I was working on this, I went and I started digging because I was like, what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing happening, something serious has happened and we don't understand it. We don't know. We're just adjusting. We're adapting. Since I got time, let me tell you this story. So there's this story that you could take a live frog And if you take that live frog and drop it into a pot of hot water, it's going to jump out, right? But if you take that live frog and put it in room temperature water and slowly heat it up, that frog is not going to jump out, and it's going to boil to death in that water, because it adjusts its body temperature to the water. As the water heats up, it just adjusts. So that's what we have done with everything that has happened in 2020 on. We have begun adjusting and adapting. And so that was one of the things that I was noticing as I was writing this book. And because of that, we're going to definitely look at each of these offerings, starting with the Lord's offerings. And again, chapter 7 will be presented in about 7 or 8 parts. All right, bye.